Silver Lake, serene, peaceful, a sheet of glass reflecting the sky. Willow trees dipped their branches, whispering secrets to the water. Locals called it Whispering Willow Lake, a place of beauty, a place of peace, a place where time seemed to stand still. But beneath the surface, a darkness lurked, an ancient fear waiting. For generations, stories had been passed down, whispers of a strange fog, a fog that swallowed everything in its path, a fog that brought with it an unsettling silence. The villagers spoke of it in hushed tones, their faces etched with fear. It began subtly, like a whisper, a thin veil obscuring the far side of the lake. The villagers watched from their windows, anxiety tightening their chests. The fog rolled in slowly, inexorably, consuming the lake, swallowing the light. The air, once filled with the sound of bird song and rustling leaves, grew silent. The silence was unnerving, oppressive, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Fear gripped the village. Doors were bolted. Lights were extinguished. No one dared to venture outside. Lena, a young scientist, arrived at the village edge. Her eyes shone with curiosity, not fear. She had heard the stories, the myths, the legends, but Lena believed in facts, in evidence, in the power of science to explain the unknown. She unpacked her equipment, sensors, meters, cameras. Lena was determined to understand the fog, to analyze it, to unravel its secrets. Her heart beat with anticipation. This was no time for fear. This was a time for discovery. Lena stepped into the fog. The air grew instantly colder. The world around her vanished, swallowed by a dense white abyss. She could see nothing, hear nothing, only the soft crunch of her boots on the damp earth. She checked her equipment. Sensors hummed, meters flickered. Everything was working perfectly. So far, the fog was just that, fog. But Lena felt a prickle of unease on her skin, a sense of being watched, of being followed. The silence was broken by a sound, faint, almost imperceptible, a low humming. It seemed to emanate from the fog itself. Lena stopped. She strained her ears. The humming grew louder, closer, and then she saw them, shadows, moving through the fog. They were tall and slender, their forms shifting and wavering. Lena felt a chill run down her spine. She told herself it was just the wind playing tricks on her eyes. But deep down, a primal fear began to stir. Lena stumbled upon a wooden jetty. It stretched out into the fog, disappearing into the white void. At the end, a small rowing boat bobbed gently, empty. She approached cautiously. Her hand reached out to touch the rough wood. As she did, the humming sound intensified. The boat rocked violently. Lena gasped, pulling her hand back as if burned. She glanced down at her equipment. The meters were going haywire. Needles spun wildly. Lights flickered erratically. Panic surged through Lena. Her rational mind screamed at her. There had to be a logical explanation, but fear had taken root. She turned to flee, but the fog had closed in, thick, impenetrable. She stumbled blindly. Her heart pounded in her chest. The humming sound was all around her now, a deafening drone. Lena tripped and fell, her equipment scattered across the ground. She lay there, gasping for breath, defeated. She crawled, pulling herself through the fog. Her clothes were torn, her skin scratched and bleeding, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. The fog seemed to press in on her, suffocating her. Finally, she broke free, stumbling onto the familiar ground of the village outskirts. She collapsed onto the grass, soaking in the warmth of the sun on her face. The fog seemed to retreat as if it had never been. The villagers found her. They gathered around her, their faces a mixture of concern and grim acceptance. They had seen it all before. The fog's power, its hold. They helped her to her feet, offering her water and blankets. No one spoke of what had happened. No one needed to. They had seen the fear in her eyes, the same fear they all carried in their hearts. Lena left the village the next day. Her equipment lay forgotten in the back of her jeep, broken, useless. She had gone into the fog seeking answers, but she had found something else entirely, a mystery. A truth that defied explanation. As she drove away, she glanced back at the lake, serene, peaceful, and yet she knew some secrets are best left undisturbed.